Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli back out here in the shop, and we've got a great new rigging technique for you today called the Jointed Fluke. The Jointed Fluke. We're going to show you a way to rig this that gives this soft plastic jerkbait a very unique side-to-side swimming action, unlike anything I've ever seen. Best of all, this rigging technique, super easy. You could do it in your shop, you could do it on the boat, you could do it on the fly. Really easy technique to rig. All right, before we get started, let me remind you that all the baits, all the rigging gear that you see in this video is going to be listed down below in the link, so make sure you check those out. All right, let's start with this bait and the components to rig the Jointed Fluke. We need soft plastic jerkbait. We need a Fluke style bait. And for this rigging technique, I want you guys to use a bigger sized fluke. A 4, a 5, even a 6-inch soft minnow bait, a soft fluke. That's what you want for this rigging technique. To really obtain that swimming motion, it's got to be a bigger size. So my favorite, without a doubt, is Berkley Powerbait. That is the 5-inch power jerk shad. Very traditional looking fluke style bait. So you need a 4 to 6-inch soft fluke. Next thing we need is the hook. And for this rigging method, we're going to use Wacky style hooks. But we're going to use bigger Wacky style hooks. I'm going to show you 2 ways to rig it. In the first rigging method, we're going to use a 1 to 3/0 Wacky weedless hook. And this is a VMC weedless Wacky. It's got a little wire guard. I'm going to show you why I like this style hook, because we're going to be able to modify this one on the fly. So a 1 to 3/0 Wacky weedless style hook, and this is weightless. This is for when we're going to be fishing shallow or when we're skipping it 0 to 5 feet around cover. This is going to be the hook we use. But the second hook we're going to use, and this is when we want to get this Jointed Fluke a little deeper, is a weighted Wacky hook. And this is a VMC weighted Wacky hook. This one's also got a little weed guard on it. I'm going to show you how you can modify this one. And weight size for this one, we're going to fish anywhere from 1/8 all the way to 1/4. And this is going to allow us to get this Jointed Fluke deeper, but it's going to maintain that same lazy swimming action, okay? So Wacky style hooks, either the weightless, weedless, or the weighted style, 1 to 3/0, a little bit bigger Wacky hook is preferred. Next piece of equipment, we're going to use hitchhikers. We're going to use these spring locks, keeper locks, whatever you want to call them. I always call them hitchhikers. But we're going to use these baits and these pieces of terminal tackle. And this is key to getting this lure to have that motion, okay? I really like, these are the VMC spring locks, but we're going to use these in the smallest size you can find. So VMC makes small, medium, and large. We're going to use the small size on these hitchhikers. This is a big one. I'll show you what a small one looks like. Pretty big difference there. So we want the smallest size hitchhiker you can find. Just for demonstration though, I'm going to leave these large ones out to show you how to rig these together. And then last but not least, we're going to need a scissors or a side cutter. And I really like the cutter for this technique. Just a regular straight edge. Everyone's got one, carpet cutter. And we're going to use this to modify that fluke before we start our rigging, okay? All right, here it goes. How to create the Jointed Fluke. We're going to take our fluke, and again, 4 to 6-inch, and we're going to use that cutter or scissors, and we're literally going to cut that fluke directly in half, okay? So just, you could eyeball it. If you're out in the boat, a scissors is fine. I like the cutter, so I like to just lay it flat on my shop desk, get that halfway point, and just make a nice straight cut. And that's what we're going to end up with. We're going to end up with 2 segments. I know what you're thinking. You ruined it. You ruined it before we even fished it. But this is key to getting this action that we're talking about, right? This is not a normal fluke action. This is a lazy side-to-side swimming motion. And we're going to cut that thing in half, all right? Next thing, we're going to get our hitchhikers, spring keepers, and we're going to get 2 of them. Again, use the small size. This is the big size just because I want you to be able to see how I'm linking them together. Most of these hitchhikers, these spring locks, they're set up, they look like corkscrews. They look like wine keys, right? They've got a pointy end, and then they've got an end with a little clevis on the back. And we're going to interlock 2 of those keepers together just by joining them at that back end, right? Not the pointy end, but the end with the little clevis on there, that little keeper. And we're just going to join them together. And that's what we end up with is 2 opposite facing hitchhikers, right? Pointy end up, pointy end down, and they're linked together. Okay, so that's the large size. There's the small size linked together. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to join those 2 pieces. Now, when we join them, I want you to remember that if you look at the cut section of those flukes, most of these baits have sort of like a slit in the belly. So as we rig them, we want to make sure that we're in the top meaty side of that body, right? Each side's going to have it. We want to be in the meat. So we're going to get our little hitchhikers, our corkscrews, and we're going to just start that rotation, and we're going to twist it clockwise, okay? We'll do the top segment first. Just want to make sure it's nice and straight. We're going to start that clockwise rotation until it's all the way down to that cleat or that clevis, okay? So the 1/2 is in. That's our head. We're going to get our tail, our second segment. We're going to do the same exact thing on the backside. And remember, go in that meaty part. Try to center it as best as you can. And just begin that clockwise twisting motion so you get that bait really started. And you'll feel, as you start to twist it, you'll feel it catch. And we want to go all the way up till we've hit the back of that cleat. Okay? Okay, here we go. All right. Now here's what we end up with, guys. Check it out. We've got a soft plastic fluke that now has a jointed segment. Look at it. It has a joint in it. Just like a glide bait, just like a jointed hard minnow bait or a Rapala jointed minnow, we have a joint in that bait now, okay? Let's go to the hook, and then I'm going to tell you how to retrieve it to get that swimming motion. All right, I'm going to start with that Weedless Wacky hook. This is a VMC, a 2-aught VMC, 1 to 3-aughts fine. This is a 2-aught VMC Wacky hook. I'm going to lift that wire guard out, and rigging is key with this technique, okay? So we're not going to thread. We're not going to Texas rig. We need this bait to have motion, so we're going to nose hook it. And all I'm going to do is go about 1/8 of an inch down into the nose of that soft minnow, that fluke, and I'm going to pull it out. And now I've got a nosed hook, jointed fluke, and when I'm fishing around heavy cover, when I'm skipping under docks, when snags are an issue, all I do is pull that little wire guard back on the hook, and now I've got a bait that can slide through cover, can skip it under docks. But when we're in open water, shallow, when I still want this weightless presentation, all I have to do is get my side cutters, and I just cut that, I just totally cut that guard off, okay? And now I've got that same Wacky hook, 1 to 3-aught. This is the 2-aught VMC Wacky hook, and it's weedless. Great hookup percentage. So do that when you can, when cover's not an issue. All right, last but not least, let me show you when we want to get this same bait, lazy swimming motion, a little deeper, we're just going to go to that weighted wacky hook, okay? And that's that VMC one, 1/8, 3/16 quarter. The 1/8 and the 3/16 I love. And we're going to do the same exact thing, which is to nose hook this bait. 1/8 of an inch down, pop right out of the head. Make sure it's nice and straight. And there we've got a weighted nose hooked version. The great thing about this VMC is it's got a wire guard on it. So just like the weightless version, if I'm around cover, I leave that on there, right? If I'm fishing through standing timber, deep brush piles, I leave that on there. If I'm in open water, just get your cutter and cut that little guard off, okay? So a weighted version for when we want to get it deeper. Let's say 5, 10, 15, 20 feet. Use a weighted version, okay? I'm going to go back and just put that 2/0 VMC wacky hook on there. And now I really want to talk to you about how to retrieve this thing, because this jointed fluke, the retrieving method is totally different than a standard fluke, right? Standard soft jerk bait, you're firing it out there and you're you're using twitching in your wrist to make that thing come alive. Because of that joint, because of that little small hitchhiker joint, we're not going to do that. All we want to do is a slow, steady retrieve followed with a twitch and a pause. And that's all we're going to do, right? So we're going to make that cast. It's going to hit. After it hits the water, the weightless one will start a retrieve right away. The weighted one we can let sink down. We're just going to start a slow, steady, methodical retrieve. And as we do that, that water, as it's flowing past the side of that body, when it hits that joint, it wants to send those sides going in different directions. So we're going to get that lazy swim, just like a jointed Rapala, just like a little jointed swim bait, right? Swimming lazily. The only difference is about every, call it 8 or 10 cranks, I throw in a small twitch, tink, and a pause. And when we do that, we disrupt that steady movement, right? And imagine a fish following it, watching that gliding movement of that jointed fluke. And then you throw a little twitch with a pause, and it just throws it off center for a second. And every time you twitch it, it'll throw it off a different way. It'll go left, maybe left again, maybe right. And there's no rhythm to it. But when it sets it off rhythm and you pause it, and then you start retrieving again, boom, it tracks again and swims. Amazing cool modification, amazing action, so different than a normal fluke style bait. One last little tip is I like to use super glue on this as well. So after I put those spring keepers in, I'll get super glue. And this is a little Fix-A-Lure by Spike It. And you can get a little bit and just dab some on there. And that'll help keep those joints together a little bit better. But jointed fluke rig, super unique action, deadly action. Fish follow it. Little twitch, little pause, fish eat it. Man, I hope you like this one. This is a cool new rigging technique. If you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're watching, subscribe to my channel. See that button down there? Mash that button. If you're already a subscriber, do me a favor. Tell your friends about Mike Iaconelli Fishing on YouTube. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming to you every single week. That's the jointed fluke rig. Try it out. You're going to catch more fish. Bye.